Hi. Mwah. To all you, wherever you may be in the US, we are on.
It's amazing opening ourselves to direct experience, just like Karen allowed us to have, how deeply we can understand and how simply words can fall away, right? And what a mastery it can be to open in such a way that we are so moved that our words are simply at the service of that inspiration. Thank you so much for embodying and giving us the direct experience that we're simply speaking to. Thank you. So much to cover. This, as you well know, as a lover myself, I always seem to be very attracted to words that celebrate that particular quality. But I didn't want to bypass this because I think it speaks to what Karen was speaking to towards the end of what she was sharing with us. It can be daunting and scary to open the door to truly get to know ourselves, because we don't know what we're going to encounter. And we don't know if we are going to be able to handle what we encounter. And it can leave us in varying degrees on the spectrum of self-knowledge to put up our own walls, barriers, in the form of belief, doubt, hesitation, rationale. We can have all sorts of good moral reasons that we keep the door to truly get to know ourselves in the deepest sense of what that means. And I think these words speak well to the desire of the divine desiring for us to come out, to move into the light of our being as an answer to a call, as a response, like we spoke of last night, to something unnameable that is already seeking us. Wouldn't it be amazing if in some of the places where we are so hesitant to get to know ourselves, where we pause, wouldn't it be amazing if in those very intimate, vulnerable places, we actually heard, "Let me see you. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet, and you are lovely." That certainly comes from my own belief, coming from experience, and I think Karen as well. It shows how we have so many different languages for how it shows up, and all of them form this amazing tapestry that gives a witness to the diversity of consciousness in form right here. So I wanted to recap where we're going to go tonight and tomorrow. And I do promise that we'll get deep into all of these. This is a lot for us to cover, but it's an entry point. It's not meant to be a mastery of. We're not going to walk out of tomorrow. Well, you may. Because as you know with subtle energy, the more open you are, the more quickly everything can be downloaded immediately so that your understanding is shifted and shaped. So you may walk out having a grasp and mastery of all of these, but for most of us, it's a bit of a journey and a learning. So we're going to cover all three of these that I think form a nice cohesive package. However, in that, I do want to keep lacing direct experiences so that your toolbox is being increased all the way along, and also you're getting a chance to integrate. You'll see at the very end we're going to get into integration and processing. I'll have 3 different techniques from completely different backgrounds and traditions that you can take with you. Because it's one thing to have a moment of inspiration, and it's another thing to integrate it in such a way that you feel yourself free or freer. So I think that's just as important as having the delight of the encounter. Right. So today I'm hoping that we'll get into 5 practices. One will be the use of natural sound. Another will be a toning and movement Taoist exercise that purifies the liver. Another will be toning this part of the subtle energy. We'll get into that anatomy. Another will be a mantra. So you've already received the mantra, but this will be a little subset mantra to the mantra. And a chant. And this solfeggio mode that is the Ray frequency, which we'll get into frequencies. Yesterday was a 4th Fa, but a Ray frequency is one that you can actually take and utilize with any inspired text. I'm a Ruby lover as well. Lennox read this amazing poem. Puffy's just as much for me. And I love taking some of these tones, this form of chant that is simply the movement of the notes and the inflections. There's no time measure in this type of chant, and applying it to even that poetry. You can take a text that really moves you and apply what you'll learn to any text. So I want to start out with just a very light touch on the idea of cosmology. So you might be familiar with Tesla. And I put him up here as an opportunity to build your confidence that where we're going is trustworthy. Just like Karen confirms that what she has found as in healing for you, for her, is very quantifiable. That kind of makes us rest, right? To think of, oh yeah, you kind of understand what's going on. Well, we have some of the most influential new thought people like Tesla and Einstein and so many others, many women among them, though they're lesser known, saying that if we could really open the door, and even if our scientists that are so well formed and contributing so much, if they could even for a moment begin to study what we're talking about here, non-physical phenomena, we believe it made more progress in 1 decade than all the centuries. I believe that to be so. So I'm taking him to kind of say, yes, you can trust. Yes, you can trust. So let's get into a couple of cosmologies. I want to start with 2 that I've been very influenced by, and that's the Siva Sutra and Lakshmi Tantra. These are very ancient texts, and they have a very solid methodology. These come from many, many years ago. You can find parallel texts in other traditions as well, but I like to refer to them. I think they speak in a way that's very sophisticated to what we're talking about. There's another school of thought that you may be hesitant around, but I have also found the school of non-dual Shaiva Tantra from the 1200s to put forward a lot of solid ideas around cosmology as well. But these 2 texts that are pretty ancient, they give us a view of what sound is that I'd like you to consider to be the framework for what we're going to talk about, what I'm going to talk about. We'll all talk a lot tomorrow. And that is that not only that sound makes up the universe, but there is a 3-fold quality to that sound. A 3-fold. So creation, universe being part of creation, there is audible sound. Yesterday, Lennox read for us many different frequencies of different parts of creation, animals and humans. And he mentioned that 20 to 20,000 is the normal range in which us humans here, that's considered audible. All right? That's one, audible. The second form of sound is subtle sound. Subtle, S-U-B-T-L-E, subtle sound. We're going to be looking into subtle anatomy in just a little bit. And subtle sound would be to us frequencies that are happening but we're not able to hear. And they would also be frequencies that, to put in very simple terms, that are the movement of what we talked about, the great musician, the movement and the energy coming forward that's going to manifest into form. Something as though, have you ever had a feeling of somebody that pops in your head and then all of a sudden they call you the next day? Or anything along that lines. That's what we're talking about here when we talk about subtle frequencies. You actually heard something. That was information. Many of our scientists, when they're talking about energy and form, they see the universe as intelligence. Intelligence. Now, this coming into form is the purest expression of love. That love is actually intelligence. And with intelligence is an organizing factor. There's a sense of order to it that forms into patterns. So that's what we're talking about with subtle sound. And you participate in it all the time. The third quality of sound that makes up the universe is silent sound. Now that sounds kind of surprising, I would think, right? Oftentimes we have a divided idea of what is silent and what is sound, even in common parlance, right? I know oftentimes people will say, oh, I just need some silence because there's so much sound going on in my head. And divide it. But these cosmologies, these writings, are saying that actually inherent in every sound is a component of silence. And what that does, if we entertain that as a possibility, is it makes it a very dotted line between what is created and what is uncreated. It makes it a dotted line because what is uncreated is actually a part of the very creation itself. It might take some time to actually think about that and think about the ramifications. I know there's a beautiful text in the Bible that said God, and we talk about God being sounding or wording, which G-U-T-H. God is that in which we move and live and have our being. In which we move, we're coming into form. In which we live, we exist as an individual that can be touched and that's in relationship. And we have our being, meaning our life is illumined in as much as we come into the fullness of who and what we are. So a little touch on cosmology. I also think that these two, so Einstein, a wonderful thinker, I know he contributes a lot to physics, but I think he offers much more than just physics for our consideration. And Brian Greene, who definitely is a very popular author when it comes to what makes up the universe. And if you'd like any ideas on books that you could go more deeply into that, I'll be happy to. I like Brian Greene as an author. I'm obviously geeky as well. So take a moment and read that very complex, difficult to understand paragraph of Brian Greene. Particles of the cosmos are tiny snips of subatomic particle strings, 100 billion times shorter than the diameter of the nucleus of an atom. So remember, I don't know about you, but when I was in science class, we thought at that time that the atom was like the smallest thing. And that's in one lifetime. Since then, we have advanced so much that we have discovered that we've got these things that are 100 billion times shorter, and that they vibrate in predetermined ways. That means they're vibrating already with a pattern. Already with a pattern. And they are in relationship. And that's how nature and creation comes about. So you've got these vibrating elements forming into patterns in relationship, forming what we call nature. How can I bring that down in such a way that it's not complex, where it's not kind of, you can chew on it a little bit. Think about yourself as a collection of strings. It's formed into the pattern. And think about a time that you reorganized, that you had an experience that we might call a change. We'll assume change for the better, because it could be change for in a direction you don't want to go. But change for the better. Let's say you had a movement within you that changed you in such a way that you looked different to the people around you. And then you found yourself gravitating to new people, or new situations, or new activities. And those activities satisfied you more than what you did before that change. So that's what we're speaking to here. And if we focus on that possibility, it lets us enter into the realm where change can become gracious. Because to become whole is to become at ease with the impermanence of ourselves, so that the pattern of what we are can move into a soundness that we are walking in that in which we live and move and have our being. Does that make sense, even if you need to digest it just a little bit? Not if so, if not, I'll give some more examples. Okay, all right, just want to speak to it just a little bit. So that's probably the framework of where we're going. Now, I happen to love etymologies. One of the reasons I do is that I think there's a collective consciousness that goes with etymology. Etymology is some of the roots of a word, like where a word has come from, and how it's influenced different cultures. And we don't have the time to get that much into it. But I think taking a look at the words that we're referring to tonight and tomorrow can be very helpful in creating a base as we lead. While we'll do experiential things so we have an immediate experience, one of the ways that we change most rapidly is when our thought changes. Because the thought, which is form, it may not feel like it's form, but it isn't form. A thought, when it changes, can shift us, bam, like that. I'll give you an example. Back in 2004, I was diagnosed with ovarian cysts. And I was new in ministry. I had left the monastery, I had gone to seminary, I was on ministry staff at a church, so I had health insurance. So I did the normal thing of going to the doctor, having surgery, and having them removed. And they came back a month later. Probably not the same ones, but there was a pattern there, right? So when they came back, I was like, oh, this is not a problem for a doctor. This is something that I need to discover what it is, what's underlying it. So my style is, I actually love having lots of spiritual friends. So my style is to know my guides, my goddesses, the shamans, the ancestors, the saints, the angels. I love calling everybody in. And so what I started to do, because I'm trained with energy healing as well, is each night I set up a little candled oval space. And before entering, I would set an intention. This was all about being open to what the sis had to tell me. And I would step in, and I would lay down. And my form of energy, I rarely do laying on of hands anymore. I usually work a little more out here. So I laid down, invited in all my friends, and simply let my hands be here over the left side where they were about 6 inches away. And I just waited. And there was some guidance that came to me. And in that guidance came a very strong image. And that image was me as a 4-year-old little girl, very angry, but bottled up. One of my guides is a shaman, and that I had a vision of that shaman, and he started stomping. This ceremony on. He started stomping, and I knew I was going to stomp with him. So I started stomping and stomping, so that that little girl could express what was scary to express at that moment, which would have been a healthy response, but there just wasn't a place for it back then when I was 4. At least I didn't think there was. And I changed. And my thoughts changed because the emotion was expressed. And in a very short amount of time, as the thought changed, this anger can now be expressed. This anger is sacred and being expressed. They were completely healed and never a recurrence. The shifting of our thoughts, of our belief, the shifting on all those levels can bring about instantaneous change within ourselves. So I consider that just as experiential as the body-centered things that we'll do as well. So you ready to get on to some words? I'm going to fly through these because I know our timing is going so fast. It's already 7:30. Can you believe it? We started late, so if it's okay with you, we'll go the full amount of time. All right, the first couple words that I want to put out there to you are sound, because this conference is called The Healing Power of Sound. Power, the healing power of sound, and vibration. So I want you just to take just a second and write down on your piece of paper, if you had to give a definition of those 3 words, what would you say? What would you say sound is? What would you say power is? And what would you say vibration is? Remember, there's no right or wrong, because even if there are technical definitions, there are so many different definitions from different fields. Sound, power, and vibration. And if you're watching this live stream, I invite you to do the same. You're writing down on a piece of paper sound, power, and vibration. And you have the PowerPoint. I know you can only see a white aura around me and in the empty space, but you have the PowerPoint at home as well. Sound, power, vibration. And if you find that you can't, that you don't know how, that's A-okay. It's even fun to say, gosh, I don't even know how to describe that. Talking about sound, I have the Jeopardy. Anybody want to bet somebody? Sound. I don't want to go into that. We talked about that so much. I want to point to power, but I would like you to take that in. You get the PowerPoint after this. So a lot of times when we talk about power, we talk about somebody having power, influencing, right? Controlling, creating a difference. But when you look at the etymology, power is also the capacity for being acted upon or undergoing an effect. And it poses the question then, if we have a high capacity, so many of us are very sensitive, right? Empathetic, sympathetic, very sensitive. There's been books out about the highly sensitive person, because it used to be that you're oversensitive, which is wrong. But to have the capacity for being acted upon or undergoing an effect is itself a power. So I'd like you to let yourself tonight, when you go home, do a little self-inquiry. Have there been times when, in this capacity, that you have felt powerless? That you have plummeted from there in a feeling of being caught or a victim of? Because what I'd like by the end of our time is that we reframe that, acknowledge it. We all feel that way sometimes when we are affected by things. It can leave us feeling powerless when we don't realize our power. And then vibration. So I'd like to just focus on the word oscillation, wavering, quiver, which comes from the Latin, vacillate. And what's interesting with vibration, especially as Pythagoras put out and many others, is that vibration are oscillations that occur around a mysterious, sometimes known, sometimes unknown equilibrium point. That's going to be very interesting information to remember. It's not random vibration. It's not vibration that is simply chaos and undoing and destructive. All vibrations that you experience are actually or potentially bringing you to the center of that equilibrium point. And that's just science. Okay. Next set of words. Frequency, energy, pattern, and sacred. I wrote one down wrong here. Frequency, energy, pattern, and sacred. How would you define those? Frequency, energy, pattern, and sacred. Okay, so frequency can be self-evident because we use that word commonly. Oh, that person frequently goes to the coffee shop. Right? It's a measurable event. Okay. Energy, everything has a frequency. And what's interesting, so that you can get a little bit of the picture, so frequency is one of the characteristics of physical phenomena. It's one of the characteristics that happens within vibration. This is going to come to play a little bit more clearly when we get to subtle anatomy. But I just want you to get a little bit of that connection because it's easy to know, oh, it's vibration, oh, it's frequency, oh, it's energy, but just a little clarity that frequency is a quality of the vibrational universe. A quality. And so when Karen was talking about becoming more stable in our wholeness, what we want to do is increase the frequency of our vibrational state, that's sound. All right. So I have a pattern off. Okay, I wrote that down right. But that's very self-evident. But I want to use that word freely because I think pattern's very helpful because it reminds us how easy it is to heal and change. It incites us into that when it can seem daunting. So sacred probably have something very similar to that, right? Set aside, consecrated, dedicated. And that word became very, very popular in some writings of Marcia Elliott. While I love science, I'm less of a science, I'm a little bit more of a philosopher and sociologist, anthropologist type of person. And what I loved about that work was that that person was studying cultures and the nature of what's considered sacred within the culture. And interestingly, how many of you see sacred and profane as this and that? Oh, that's sacred. Oh, that's profane, right? That's good and that's not so good. That's filled with light and that's kind of dark, right? Many of us, right? Oh, what a profanity that was, right? Which is usually not a compliment. In the original references to sacred and profane, that's not at all what was meant. What was meant was that the sacred was that consciousness that we're talking about and the energy coming into form, and the profane was the referential for what we would call a hierophant, and that would be any matter that was the agent for the sacred coming into form. So I know one of my qualities is priestess. So that would make me a hierophant. That would make me very profane. At least hopefully, if I'm being honest to my calling. Sacred and profane. Let's soften the lines between good and bad and what we call right and wrong. We have many, many divisions around early culture about what was clean and what was dirty that we don't accept at all today. How will it be years from now with what we call dirty now that generations will look back and say, oh, what were they thinking? So we can be the agent for the change in how we label these things. And when there is a thought of seeing something as profane, remember, vehicle for grace, vehicle for light, vehicle for wholeness. Okay, a few other words that will be coming into our time that I think are very helpful. So source, it's kind of like beating the horse, huh? So from Latin surgere to surge. Again, the ineffable coming into form. Sutra, to rise. To rise. So in the desiring of the perfect equilibrium, to create as a play that we call life, there is a rising into form, and there is an ending to that form. And we are simply like the waves on the ocean, aren't we? Right? We have an undercurrent to what we are. At certain points in our life, we kind of peak and crest, and other times we subside back into the whole. As Ruby said so well, that we are a drop. And would that we would drop ourselves into the ocean, but we fear we'll lose our power, only to find that once we drop into the ocean, we come in to the real place of strength. So wisdom, soundness of action, insight, hopefully we'll gain that here. And illumination is not just simply being illumined, it's an effect. So it's a response to being light-filled. So a few terms for you. Now jumping back, I want to give you this example of when frequency was measured in a very profound way. The Gulf spill, the BP gas spill in the Gulf of Mexico, which I lived in Sarasota at the time, so I was there right on the panhandle in that area. These two people used one of the frequencies of the solfeggio that we're referring to, okay? And they used sound and radio. And in, I think it was a 24-hour period, applied it 24 hours, they applied this sound, that frequency, everything was set to that frequency, and the toxicity almost completely disappeared. That's remarkable, especially in a large body of water that would have so many unexpected influences upon it, right? We didn't know because the toxins penetrated the water, so the water itself would have been toxic. I was going to say intoxicated, but toxic. So a good example there for us. Another Tesla quote. So I have more credibility to where we're going to go. All right. So after this, I'm going to get into a few practices with you. And I want to speak to subtle energy anatomy. And again, as I said yesterday, and I'll say it a million times, just don't take anything I have to say as true. Okay, just don't swallow it, but wrestle with it. Come to your own place of truth. Here are systems that I am not going to draw upon, but I want you to know they exist. Because in every tradition, every single tradition, there is record and writings to help the human being come into fullness of health, referencing subtle energy. As I mentioned yesterday, many of the more ancient ones, actually health was kind of interwoven. The physical and the etheric parts of the self were all interwoven. And emotional and psychological. We when we systematized more and more as human species, we tended to put things more in boxes, right? And that's helpful too, because it helps us measure something or mark something or speak specifically to something. So this isn't one way's better and one way's worse. But I'd like to point out that all of these, they come from Buddhism, from different modes of Hinduism, from Taoism, from Confucianism, from Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. You can find subtle energy anatomy. Now, the indwelling spirit I'm referring to, if you happen to be Christian, I know many here are, is if you take a look at the writings of some of the early theologians or mystics, if you will. This goes up to the time of Tertullian, so probably up to somewhere in the 300s where the influence would have taken place most strongly. You will find that there was an unspoken belief already that the person had indwelling spirit. So all wholeness came from a referential inward not separated outward. So you will get a copy of this PowerPoint. For those of you watching the live stream, I'm just referring to bandhas, koshas, gunas, qigong, pranavayus, meridians, and nadi, and chakras. Each one has a slightly different system. What I want to share with you, which I actually shared with Lennox and Judy when we were all together in Kansas, is a system that I think is helpful for any direction you want to go down, since it was developed by someone who was a former astrophysicist. So there's something that forms kind of a common ground for going deeper with any of these, whereas these each have distinctions and a different language to them. So you would be stepping into a particular system of thought. The one I want to share with you is a bit broader. And that is the work of Barbara Brennan, and I'm taking this from the Hands of Light. So in her work that they have actually used modern technology, she's still alive, to discover the frequencies of, and she has a healing school as well. She's not a physicist for NASA anymore. She's discovered, and she expects to find more. She discovers that, see, that's a beautiful human person with a really big head and really short forearms. She discovered that each human person is made up of 9 energy bodies. 9. So whereas sometimes we might refer to a person having an aura, that can be a little bit of a different vantage point, because the aura seems to come from the person. I mean, the physical comes from the radiant, right? And when somebody is sound and whole in their physical body, there is going to be a radiance. But what her research shows is that all the radiance is coming from the subtle energies, bodies, that are leading to the physical. The physical is just the fruit of the other bodies. And what I'd like to point out with this, so each of these has a name and a texture to it, which is the goal of this workshop. That would be a whole other workshop in and of itself to unpack each of these. But what I'd like to plant a seed is that what's fascinating is each of these energy bodies is a complete working system. So it's not just like energy, a life force, it's coming and informing the body, and it's this kind of random thing that comes in ceaselessly, and boom, you've got the physical body. Just as much as your physical body has a completeness to it, you have systems that are working in harmony to form the body. So each one individually is complete in and of itself. And the most subtle informs all the rest. So this one out here informs all that goes into more density. This one here forms more density, all the way through, all the way to the physical. And what I think is wonderful in her work is, so you'll see there I put little circles on what are considered major chakras. And chakras are considered energy vortices. So think about if you had a news station and all the news came into that station, right? Everyone's calling and sending in emails and sending the news into that station, and then the news station processes it and then sends it out in the form of papers or e-blasts or however commentators on the TV. That's a bit of what we're talking about conceptually when we talk about a chakra, being open to and processing energy. There are many more than this that make up you and me, that can be detected with the right technology. And I know we know a lot of people that have all that technology if you have any more interest. But what I'd like to point out is these major chakras that you'll find also referred to in texts are considered to make up 50 vibrations on the seed level. So you think of a seed goes into the earth, And from the seed, a plant comes forward, and that plant's kind of complex, but it came from a seed. So what we're talking about here is on a seed level. It contains all the diversity of the form it will be. The seed level, that we are made up of 50 vibrations. And those 50 vibrations are the exact vibrations that make up the universe. So you are actually, it can be provable that the microcosm of who and what you are is truly the macrocosm. And we have yet to really buy into that, right? So you hear a lot of talk of we are all one, and that's true. But we can ground it in such a way that it can celebrate the diversity of form that is before us. Because you're also not my skin that's here, right? There is an individuation that's happening. So that's real as well in our experience. But if we look beyond that, we begin to encounter the compelling experience that's much more interesting in being alive. Well, what's good to refer to as well is that these are all equal signs. So the 50 vibrations actually make up the matrika, which is the physical creation as we know it, that make up the spanda, that are the vibrational elements. So you think of Brian Greene and all of those 100 billion little vibrating, oscillating strings. That's, he is getting it right to what we know, and the spanda is much more, because there's a lot more vibration going on than what he or anyone has yet discovered that makes up the universe. So here you've got these ancient texts that I love being completely complementary with Barbara Brennan's work. And other words that we like to use for that is matrika being this kind of, the mortar and stone, and the Shakti is the guiding intelligence that I'm being informed right now by being able to go like this. Being able to go like this. That guiding intelligence is not just simply the operation of my brain working, it's the impulse of the life force coming into the brain. So a nice thought for Shakti there. So what does that mean then when because we're going to go from here into a toning exercise with one of the chakras, which is going to be right up here in the forehead. You can use the crown too, the forehead will focus on. What does this actually mean when I refer to chakra in general? Once again, I'm going to draw upon Barbara Brennan's diagram because I like it. It includes all the other ones that you were talking to in words that apply to all of us. So incoming energy is life force, primordial vibration, and that is always ceaselessly being captured by chakra. It's always coming forward, it's always informing the earth, and because the chakra is going like this, right? So it's rotating, vibrating, it's going to be a heightened place for that incoming energy to come. And so that incoming energy then translates like that news station as outgoing energy. Isn't that interesting? We talk about moving out, but outgoing energy is actually this. So the outgoing energy is going systematically into each of the densest, most base parts, base in the good sense of the word. As in, we're rooted here, we are based in creation. So it first travels by way of nadis, energetic channels, which then translates into the nervous system, going into the immune and the blood. And what's amazing to me that I find very inspirational is that when we talk about sacred things, when we talk about connection, how often we use the word of blood. Oh, they're of my blood. And would that we would regard every human person, right, on a spiritual level to be blood. like Lennox, you were saying, your family, we're here in this country, your family as we draw close as friends. That's what that's speaking to. And all traditions have some reference of blood, and that's the base. It's the base where it's so beautiful. It's not high and lofty, it's the base. I love this passage in Deuteronomy, I think it's 31, maybe 29. My law, if you translate the Hebrew text, law, you can substitute in actually love. It's softer, it's less rule-oriented, because the texture in which they needed, the timbre, the color, the quality is quite different than what we think of as law. My law is not too mysterious and remote for you. It is not high up in the sky that you have to grow wings and fly to find it. It is not across the ocean that you have to figure how to build a boat to find it. No, it is already written upon your heart and your lips. You have only to carry it out. You have only to open to the level that the incoming energy can, bam, make it all the way down so that your blood pulses. When we talk about a primordial vibration, the clearest referential we can have is that it's something like a pulse, and a throb. Tomorrow morning we'll be doing a heartbeat meditation with chant to open our day, so we'll get a closer and more immediate experience of that. So what I want to do now, since I've been talking a lot, is go into one practice. Let's go into atoning for a chakra. Do you want to start there, or do you want to start with atoning for an organ or natural sound? What do you think? Want me to lead? Okay. Let's do that. I'm up for the, let's start with chakra. Let me get right which slide it is. We're going to go back to sound healing as a natural system. This is way slower. There we go. Okay. All right. So you can stand or sit, and I'd like to invite you just to put anything aside that you're holding. Uncross your legs. You can take your shoes off if you want to. Okay. And let's get the hand position right first, and then you can move your hands down. So the thumbs are going to go on the upper cheeks. The first and second fingers just right above the eyebrows. This ring finger right here in the center, we call that the sixth chakra, the third eye. Okay. And the pinky finger on the bridge of the nose. So you've got this, and you're using both hands. So thumbs here. You can hear me well enough. Let me make sure you keep on the live stream. Thumbs here, two fingers, eyebrows, ring finger on the third eye, and the pinkies on the bridge of the nose. Is this fun? Great, awesome, awesome. And the sound for brow and crown is Now in other traditions, it would be shum, om, and there are a number of other syllables that can work, but is good for this. And what we want to do when we do the is to let yourself bring the up into the forehead. And this particular practice says that if you smile, actually the smile itself draws the up, which makes sense, right? You're smiling, you're kind of brightening up, and you're drawing it up. What we're going to do is, when we initiate the sound, we're just going to put a little bit of pressure with the ring fingers right on that third eye, just a little bit of pressure. And then, after the pressure, we're going to move the hands up and away, like this. So we're just opening up, like this. Opening up, while we're still okay?
move back into position. Move naturally, and we'll do it again. So I want you to take just a second. Perhaps think of an intention of where you would really love to see reality as it is. Insight, third eye, seeing reality as it is. Remember, you can't do this wrong. Okay. So we're inhaling and exhaling. After the next inhale, we'll begin inhale and toning, pressing on the third eye. Opening the hands, continuing the drawing the hands upward, not touching, but prayer position. Breathing. Drawing the hands back down into position, continuing the pressing on the third eye, continuing to breathe, toning, opening the hands upward, opening. Going at your own pace. You can do it at whatever pace goes. Continue the or continue, we'll do a count of 6. This is the third. Imagine or sense that you're opening the vertical channel of yourself. Above the spine, above the crown, just opening. One more full round. Relax, breathe naturally. Notice any change. So when I was 19, I began to have this experience. And at this time, I was solidly Catholic, experiencing, I grew up in a charismatic family where from a young age, we participated in a lot of charismatic gifts, such as laying on hands and speaking in tongues and also prophecy and all sorts of things. And when I was 19, I began to have this experience in numerous places, but I'll refer here to one place, walking into a mission chapel. I was working with the homeless out in Santa Cruz, California. And each time I would simply walk over the threshold into that little chapel, it felt like someone or something took the top of my head and pulled it open, like huge, like this big vat, pulled it open like this. And simultaneously, as it was pulled open, it would feel like a waterfall of this white, delicious feeling light would just flood me. And at first I couldn't, I would swoon, I would totally pass out, but I couldn't sustain it physically. And a lot of times other things would come forward from there, things like visions or being caught up in bliss and that. And I knew what was happening was of spirit, but I had no idea. I had no other background to understand as we're speaking about subtle energy anatomy.
And then when I did go through learning and training, and this is what was happening, was the opening of what's called a transpersonal point that sits a bit above the crown, that is a connecting force in life energy. Well, we're all life energy, a particular entry point, if you will. And that part was being blown open because of divine desire and my desire for that divine desire. That's what we're talking about here. We all experience things like that in different languages, in different forms. So this practice, I will in the manual be giving you a toning for each one of the major chakras that's very similar, that can be helpful. Because what it's doing is it's allowing health for the physical body, but also in all those 9 other bodies, and probably more, there are fragmented, blocked places in all of us. There could be some kind of belief that's guilt hanging out in the 4th energy body, close by the 3rd chakra out here. You may not even know it. Or probably if you did know it, you probably would do something quickly about it. And so toning exercises like this help open us to the very subtle relationship that we have to all of who and what we are. Talking about yesterday, I was so hot on the revelatory nature of our journey, and that's what I'm speaking to there. So I'd like to do another toning exercise, and this one's very practical, coming from a Taoist tradition. And I'm also going to give you numerous tonings for specific organs. One thing I love about Taoist system is they're just so practical. You know, it's like, let's smile. Let's imagine that our pancreas is smiling. And what's so awesome about that and its playfulness is it actually creates a healthy pancreas. So this one, okay, we're gonna work with I don't know why, but the liver kept coming to me. So I chose the liver for this. So this, you're gonna sit with your feet on the ground, and I would suggest moving back from the table, just so your energy's not bumping up against the surface so much, okay? And I will demonstrate it here when I'll just pretend I'm sitting, but let's read this. So what you're going to do is, you're going to move the hands upward, okay, to draw a circle in the air. They're going to come up like this, and you're going to allow the eyes to follow the hands, but you're not going to look at the hands. Just use the peripheral vision, okay? You want to keep, the reason you're keeping the head elevated is it's helpful to keep the spine as long as you can. So when we're kind of like this, it's kind of like a kink in a hose a bit. So we're simply using peripheral vision and letting the hands guide us to a more open spine. And we're going to let the hands, okay, move towards each other, complete the circle, and then interlace the fingers and then turn the palms up. That's what we're going to be doing. And drawing in the breath as we do it, and you're going to push the right palms, so you're going to open this side of the body where the liver is, you're going to push the right palm upward. And when we open up that space, we're going to use this toning. Okay? And you gotta use all the breath. Like, get dry. And then draw in an in breath. And when you draw in the in breath, you're gonna bring the hands back down to the lap. So then we're gonna raise the hands again, interlace, push towards it, draw in a breath, exhale completely, pushing the right palm upward, exhale completely, and then we're gonna bring the hands down to the lap. Remember, you can't really do anything wrong. So you're sitting, hands on the lap, and let's just go for it. We're gonna do 6 times. So you're breathing, drawing your breath in, releasing the fingers, exhaling, turning the palms upward, inhaling, pushing the right palm up and when you finish, unlace the hands, bring them back to the lap. You're breathing normally now. Full breath. Once you reach an exhale, inhaling up. Lace the fingers. Exhale. Turn the palms upward. Inhale. Exhale. Push the right palm up. Inhaling, bringing the arms down. Again, at your own pace this time. This is number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And next. Just want to sit with that. Notice what you felt. Notice if anything surprised you. I know I could feel something, for sure. Feel movement in the liver. So let's take a look at sound healing as just a concept. Sound healing. That'll be about what we can get to tonight. We'll go through that and we'll do the mantra and the chant. All right. So this is one explanation of sound healing that I like because it focuses on the brain waves and very basic brain waves that we have. There are many more subtle distinctions, trances and things like that, and I don't want to get into the more subtle aspects, but we talk about the beta, the alpha, the theta, and the delta. And so each of those basic brain wave sets is important to our functioning, right? In fact, one of the reasons I like to stress integration and processing for deep healing work is because oftentimes in that deep healing space, we get real spacious, don't we? Right? Even on the level of delta. And it's not very safe to like leave a healing space in that state. You might not notice the traffic light that's before you as you get into your car. And there's a reason that we have these other brain waves. Integration and processing, when done well, can allow the cells to maintain the vibrational integrity of the healing and walk forward in the beta state. So I do like this definition when it talks about brain waves, because when we're open, right? When we're open, we do naturally shift into health. Think about how naturally healthy our bodies are. I don't know about you, but I take my physical body for granted. I mean, I expect sometimes things of myself that don't even ask my body if it wants to do. So these states refer to the brain waves, but I'm also a big believer that because more and more has been shown about intercellular communication, that with sound healing, not only are the brain states shifting, this part, we're talking of the physical brain, not the mind body, but the physical brain, but I think as well on a cellular level, all the cells actually move into the theta and delta states, and we're going to find in future research, see, this is my theory coming out that has no ground. I don't have any evidence for sure of this, but in future research, when intercellular communication is even better understood, we're going to find out that there's wave patterns that are definable, that actually the body itself at times can lead us into the healing, not just the brain. That we can prove this. I think it's so that the brain is kind of the master of it all. But I think that's a good workable definition. And with that is that belief that the mind can return to the quantum level. And so that anything that's been distorted, so anything within any of the energy bodies can come naturally into wholeness. Stillness is true stillness. Stillness isn't where you're forcing yourself into solitude and yet you're still preoccupied. Stillness is the inner capacity to be spacious for the experience. That's what's meant there with stillness. So this brings us to forms of sound healing. And I know there are more, but I want to reference 4 of them. Natural sounds, produced frequencies, objects, and voice. Natural sounds would be going to the ocean and hearing the waves and finding that you naturally start to feel like a wave with a rhythmic motion. Natural sound would be the sound of birds sounding really happy and you begin to feel happy. And natural sounds can be used in an active and a passive way. In fact, if you look at some of the oldest records of language, you'll find that the languages between what's considered to be a human being, what's kind of are definable as a human being, it was very sing-song in nature. There was much more tonality and overtone and undertone and breadth and depth and timbre and quality to the language than what we have now. And oftentimes, natural sounds of what was around the communities were part of the very language. So could you imagine, like, if our way to, like, express happiness to each other would be but it even, I don't, makes me laugh to even do it, so it's effective. So it can be passive in the listening to, but it can also be active. And there are forms of healing that actively use natural sounds. Produce frequencies, many more than what I listed here. Hemesync is the use of frequencies going on both sides of the brain to bring about cohesiveness. Solfeggio, which I'm just going to show here in a moment. Theta frequencies and actual forms of brain mapping. And I'm pretty sure, I think with the BioWell, the frequency you get as the response would be an entrainment.
After we do this scan, we all think this, and we see the airline with the chest, and everything, and what's happening to the energy field, the balance in the organ. The BioWell the sound that we send to the person to listen to and then download it.
Did everyone hear that? So it's an awesome, if you've never had a session, you want to get one from Lennox. I had one with our good friend Tiffany in San Diego. And it's incredible. It's incredible because of the sophistication of the read of you, the information that's so simple and clear, and the effectiveness of a very simple, mine was like 10 minutes long or 11 minutes long. Yes.
Someone came home and someone came home, so we decided he was having some problems, right? So we decided to do it. Actually came to the work. So I did it. It's funny. But when we started to go through, he said, "Oh, do you know that?" I said, "Well, it's right here." "What do you know that?" It's right here. And he never come back. He thought there was something. But the funny thing is that I said, something's wrong. To this side of the earth. So, I have a cavity there. Oh, you know that. You know? He actually came back and he was moving so fast to do the job. So I guess I'm not in his books anymore. Because something is wrong with that guy.
That's good. There are many things out there. There's also a homeopathic modality that I did years back that did the same thing. The information it gave of all the systems, and I had in my energy field an allergy to hamster dander. Hamster dander came up in my reading that I was having this allergic reaction, a subtle one to hamster dander. And I had just been at my niece's the day before playing with her hamster with her. So there's, yes.
Also, in my training, right, autophagy, which I kind of teach, I cannot talk much about it. But there's a little more sophisticated, simple method of autophagy that you can use to find exactly. But I am not a I can't, because I have to automatically. Yes, of course.
A tease, are you teasing us? All right, so frequencies, objects, we had a direct experience right here. And voice, and I'm going to focus on voice. I want to reference a few of these. We're going to use natural sounds using voice. So imitating and utilizing human utterance. So we're going to work a bit more with those, but I wanted to lay those out there. And we do have a very, Karen referred to this, we've got so much history when it comes to sound being used in sacred ways for the sake of the human being. In fact, the earliest instrument that they feel confident was devoted to sacred practice was found 40,000 years ago in Germany. And many of the texts that we have, the Vedas from I think 8 to 6,000 BC, we have a number of other Greek, we've got Homer, we've got the Judaic traditions, and another number of other ones. I'm stumbling. I actually should break this down. So let me run through a couple of these here so that you can have that direct information. So the Vedic has 8 to 6,000 BC. Homer in Greece, 1500 to 1200, the Rig Veda came out. 1700 to 1000 BC, you have the Samhitas. 1100 BC, you've got David. And from there, we've got 3 forms of sacred sound. One, Ahava Rava, great love. Another one, Magin Avot, which is a shield. And the third one, Adonai Malach, which means God reigns. You've got the Aboriginal, which put forward sacred sound just for the obtaining of wisdom and purpose and connection. Native American shamanic entrainment, Buddhism, Buddhahood, Taoism, focusing on humility and compassion, embodying that, and Christian, focusing on divine union. And to add to Karen's reference to the Om, we have in Irenaeus writing the recapitulation in Christ, meaning that you and I are the Alpha and the Omega, A-O-M, the Alpha and the Omega, that we are that Om. So that gives you, I wanted to give that overview there before we move on. Here is an example from Krishnamurti of being open to the sound in nature. So the second thing I'd like to invite you to do before tomorrow is, I know we don't have much time because we gather at 10, see if out in nature, in the morning, somewhere, you can hear the sound of something. Again, not the sound of the wind against it, but the sound of it. So let's go to produced frequency, since we've been referring to solfeggio so much. I'm not actually referring to this because of my chant background. I'm referring to it because the 528 hertz has become so popular, the me right there. It's just become the miracle frequency. If you Google it on the internet, there's so much, and that's very true, but there's a whole host of frequencies that are just as powerful falling within that. In fact, what's interesting is the Gregorian chant is mainly made up of these frequencies. And if you dissect the chant and its frequencies, you will find that some, if not all of them are divisible by 3, 6, and or 9. And Tesla said if we could just penetrate 3, 6, and 9 in the universe, we would understand everything. That is a bit baffling, isn't it? I mean, on a concept level. So we have the very frequencies right here before us. And the hymn I noted from John the Baptist, that's actually the first line. So, ut queat laxis would have been the first phrase, re sonare fibris, mira gestorum, famoli tuorum, solve polluti, lavi ireatum, Sancte Johannes, which is St. John. Now, with this, I wanted to read you the translation of that. In order that slaves might resonate, resound, the miracles / wonders of your creations with expanded vocal cords, wash the guilt from our polluted lip. That can be a little scary to hear, right? Wash the guilt from our polluted lip. And yet we have so many chants and mantras that focus on clearing the way, removing the obstacles, so that we can be flooded with expansion and abundance and express it in the world. In fact, we're going to be ending with a mantra that focuses specifically on that. So we step away from the guilt language and extrapolate the deeper meaning of what we're talking about. That's exactly these frequencies align completely with the mantra that I want to introduce you to right now. All right, so this is pronounced Om Gum Shri Mahalakshmi Ye Swaha. So let's say the first 3 syllables together. Om Gum Shri. Let's say it again. Om Gum Shri. Let's say listen to the next 2 words. Mahalakshmi, Mahalakshmi. Last two, Yei Swaha, Yei Swaha. So let's say it together. Om Shri Mahalakshmi Yei Swaha. The meaning of that is very similar to the translation I read from the Latin chant. Let all obstacles of abundance be eliminated, and the flow of the Shakti of abundance be released in me. Now, I like this translation much better than the Latin chant. I don't know about you. It speaks to me much more. But the shape and form is a little bit different, and we'll talk about that tomorrow because I know I need to be wrapping up here. So we're going to chant this just a simple round. We're just going to do it like 27 times. So if you had traditional beads that are oftentimes used with this type of mantra, many of them have 108 beads for a variety of reasons. And Karen's got one on around her neck right now. George, Mom. Interestingly, in the rosary is 54 main beads. So I'm sure that when St. Dominic put the rosary out there, it was coming from being inspired by Mama. So we're just going to let this be on one tone, except we're going to let the Yei go up. Yei. So one tone, Yei. Because part of what is powerful about a mantra, and there are many forms of using mantras, but part of what is the repetition allows the brain waves to relax into more of a trance state. So you're not needing to think of what the melody line is or applying yourself to the sound of your voice. You're just sinking into, you have to like being allured so that you can be intoxicated by the mantra. And mantra itself, each of these syllables in that particular tradition, and I know for many who chant them, I know I feel that way, the syllable itself is believed to be the fullness of what it points to. And what we're pointing to here are all of those definitions of each syllable which equal the phrase right there. So it's going to sound like this. Remember, we'll do 27. It's going to sound Om Gom Shri Mahalakshmi Yei Swaha. And just like Karen had us attend the Om, attend it. Even though we're chanting this more quickly, see if you can attend each part of the mantra. Attend the opening, attend the middle part, attend the end of each syllable, so that each get equal reference, equal emphasis. Okay? So here we go. Inviting in a breath and relax. Inviting in a breath and begin. Om Gom Shri Mahalakshmi Yei Swaha. 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 Om Gom Shri Mahalakshmiye Swaha. Om Gun 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 Shri Mahalakshmiye Swaha. As we bring these moments to a close, we go forward, knowing and trusting that we have touched each other, that we're touched by the various writers and thinkers and wisdom holders that brought us the information that I've been blessed to share with you tonight. I bow before the burning bush of each one of you. I am who am of you and your life, of the hidden ways that you continue to seek and surrender and open your heart and your mind to grow and learn and serve and love. I bow before you. And to ground ourselves, I invite you to bring your focus to your breath. And if you will, bring the inward gaze to the base of your spine. And on the next inhale, draw the breath up the spine with your gaze. Gaze moves upward and the breath is drawn upward on the inhale. And there is a pause at the crown. And the breath on the exhale follows the gaze descending back to the root. Inhaling, pulling the gaze, breath upward. Exhaling, pulling the breath down. And when you're ready, keeping the eyes focused downward, open them and notice the floor or your feet or the table. Notice any way the room is different than when you first walked in a couple hours ago. And as you would greet the night with joy, raise the eyes. I enter these words. There is an open cavern within, sitting still like the starry expanse, empty with a void, pregnant with an expectation. New life on its way. Stay empty, my companion. Stay pregnant, my friend. The labor pains are soon to start, unraveling all you thought you knew, desolating all you thought you had. But soon, so soon, the laughter of life will be sitting upon your lap. Tomorrow we'll start in by backtracking to the forms of healing to provide our framework, really rich in practices, and going deeper with each of those forms. And then we'll end with the integration and processing techniques that I think you'll find really easy and really helpful. Thank you again, Karen, for starting us off so powerfully. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks to Kimberly and Karen tonight for sharing so deeply with us. And I sincerely hope that as you head home, that you will ponder a lot of what was said. It's a lot, it's food for thought, it's a process. You can't grasp everything at one go. It's something you have to process and understand and do your own research and wrestle with it and meditate and pray about it. And all of a sudden, it will just come to you like clear as day, trust me. But you have to put the work into it. All right, so I want to thank you all for participating this evening. Safe journey home. You are loved, you are blessed. I feel the presence from we came in this afternoon. I just knew this evening was going to be good and that we're going to just feel the presence of God among us. And it has been very blessed and very sacred this evening. We still have some refreshments in the back, so we can help yourselves. And we hope to see you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. So we can get in a full day. All right, so looking forward to seeing you. Right, you can come earlier, 9 o'clock, because they will start, they will put out some things by 9. Yeah, they normally do it earlier, 1 hour before or so. So have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.